Welcome to Kevin Deal Photography, where I take you on my journey through photography. On today's episode, we're going to be doing a photo shoot with the RB67 in the studio. I know a lot of you out there are probably RB67 users. You're used to using it in great daylight. Maybe you're ready to take that next step though and use it in the studio, but maybe you're a little intimidated because of the rising costs of film. You're afraid that you're gonna get blank frames, misfires, and all that, which is totally understandable. When I first started out on the RB67, I had a lot of those. So over time, I've developed a process that has drastically cut down on my misfires and has improved the quality of my photos. So welcome to my studio here in Austin, Texas, where I'm going to help you overcome your fears of using flash with the Mamiya RB67. If you're looking for an in-depth review of the RB67, check out my beginner's guide to the RB67. I'll leave a link in the description below. If you're not familiar with Kevin Deal Photography, I do gear reviews, tips, techniques, and tutorials, and we dive into film. If any of that sounds appealing to you, click the subscribe button below. I've looked online for tutorial videos on how to use strobes in the studio with the RB67, and surprisingly, I really didn't find that many that were super helpful to me, which was kind of surprising because back in the day, the methods that I'm about to use, people probably had to use them on a daily basis because these were the cameras that people used in professional settings. There were no digital cameras, so people would shoot on medium formats, and that was the standard that you'd see in fashion photography in a lot of portrait studios. So I'm not saying that the videos that are showing you what I'm showing you today don't exist. I'm just telling you I didn't find them when I searched for them, so I decided to make one of my own. The RB67 is awesome in the studio. If you check out the review I did, I show a lot of examples of some of my favorite shots I've taken with the RB67, and I know a lot of you are intimidated by using it with flash. I was too, but let's put another notch in your belt as a photographer. If you follow these steps, I promise that your failure rate will go down significantly. I have a process that puts my misfire failure rate at less than 1%, considering the cost of film being about $2 a shot when you factor in the price of the film, driving to go get it developed, the cost of development, the cost of scanning, and everything else that's associated with it. You're talking sometimes $2 every time you push the shutter release. That's super expensive. Let me show you how I set up my RB67 for studio shooting, and hopefully you'll walk out of this video confident that you can do it too. If you don't know, the RB67 is a leaf shutter, and right here you have a PC sync cable port. Right next to that you have a switch. That switch should be set to X, not M. The M is for those old flash bulbs that you saw the press use in like the 1930s, the 1940s. We don't use those types of flashes anymore. So you pretty much just want to leave this on X at all times. You'll take your PC sync cable and you'll plug it into your PC sync port. Now keep in mind that the pegs on these cables sometimes can kind of move left or move right. Make sure it's dead center and then plug it into your PC sync port. Then you need to purchase something like this Kaiser hot shoe to cold shoe adapter. I'll leave a link in the description below to where I got mine. I think they're $30 or $40. You can't just plug your trigger in here and start going. It doesn't have the proper terminals in order to communicate with the camera. So you need to send a signal from this cable to this adapter, and then with this adapter, you'll then plug your trigger in, and then you're good to go. You go from the cable to the hot shoe to cold shoe adapter, and then you go to your trigger. Now, you're not done yet. Unfortunately, there's other steps you have to take, but it's very easy to memorize these. A lot of modern triggers have a sleep mode, a power saving mode. When you use your trigger in conjunction with your modern digital camera, as soon as you turn your modern digital camera on, it knows, oh, I need to wake up and start taking pictures because flash is about to happen. The RB67, being almost half a century old, doesn't do that. It doesn't tell the trigger, hey, I need to wake up. So If you own a trigger, you need to go into your respective manual or maybe find a YouTube video that shows you how to turn your power saving mode off on your trigger. Because if you find yourself putting your camera down, so you could find yourself talking to your talent, you could find yourself maybe adjusting a light, and by the time you pick your camera back up and try to take your picture, you get a misfire. Always make sure that you have your power saving mode turned off. Another thing that I do, and it's a good practice, is I always take test shots. If I haven't touched my camera in a while, I'll take the film back off. And then I'll take practice shots to make sure that things are communicating, which there you go. I take 2 or 3 practice shots, I get a fire, now I reconnect my film back, and then I take my pictures. Now, I don't have film in here, and once you put the film back on, if you don't have film in here, it's not gonna fire unless you're in multiple exposure mode. Now that I'm in multiple exposure mode, I should be able to take a shot. There are times where you're vulnerable to misfires. One of them is when you remove lenses. When you remove a lens and you take the PC sync cable off, you have to reattach it to a brand new lens. Sometimes it doesn't seat correctly. So when you attach a new lens, take a test shot. Anytime you turn your flash trigger off and you turn it back on, take a test shot. Anytime you take your flash trigger off and put it on your other cameras, see, I actually will mix digital and I will mix film together in the same session. Sometimes I only bring one trigger. I will take the trigger off and I will put it on the other camera. One of the reasons why I only use one trigger usually in the studio is because if I have 2 triggers, sometimes I will have the settings wrong on one trigger and I'll swap it out and I'll forget to change the power setting on one of the channels, and now all of a sudden the light will be triggering at a 1/4 power instead of full power. If I just take the trigger off and then transfer it to another camera, as long as I'm using the exact same f-stop settings on the cameras, the lights will look the same every time. One of the shortcomings that I go over in my beginner's guide to the RB67 video is that the viewfinders, whether you're using the waist level finder or you're using a prism finder, they're very dark. And so when I shoot digital, I usually turn the lights off and I just use my modeling lamps, I shoot, and everything goes really well. A lot of times you can't do that with an RB67 because the viewfinders are so dim that it's really hard to find focus. And you got to keep in mind with these lenses, the shallow depth of field could really put you in a bad situation and give you a lot of misses when it comes to focus. So I turn the lights on in my studio, I acquire my focus, and then I take my pictures, and I don't worry about it because I can actually take the shutter speed all the way up to 1/400th of a second. And at 1/400th of a second, I'm usually shooting around f8, f11, and it doesn't pick up the ambience of the house lights. Unlike with your digital camera where you have a sync speed, you do not have a sync speed with analog. You don't have to worry about going to HSS mode or any of that. You can shoot this at 1/400th of a second with the house lights on, and it'll take pictures that look nice and intimate and dark and muty the way you need them to look. If you want to check things real quick, you can turn the lights off just to make sure that your modeling lamps are hitting your subjects the way that they're supposed to. And then you can turn the lights back on, you can compose your shot, and take your picture. So that's something to consider when you're using the RB67. If you follow the steps I gave you about when you're changing lenses, when you're changing your trigger, turning your trigger's power saving mode off, and then shooting with the lights on, then you'll be good to go. But let's see how my method actually works in practice. I'm gonna be working with 2 awesome Austin-based models today. We're gonna be using Ilford Delta 100, which is my favorite black and white film stock for the studio. I love those fine T grains. And let's see what kind of results we can get using my method for using a flash with the RB67. I worked with both Sarah and Zara, and I want to thank them for participating in today's episode. We shot in both digital and film. I always do test in digital and finish in film, try to get my lighting right. I'm pretty lazy and I usually forget to bring my light meter with me, so I always just bring my digital camera to test with. As many of you know who are watching this, you only get 10 shots per roll, so it's not like I had dozens and dozens of shots that I was super proud of. I put my top 7 in, and we did everything from single exposures, and we even tried some multiple exposure shots, and I'm pretty proud with the way they turned out. I'm not gonna lie, I think some of my digital shots were better that day, but that's just how film goes. So I'm gonna leave you with a slideshow of some of my favorite shots I've taken using my methods that I talked about in today's video with the RB67 and Flash. So I hope the methods that I shared with you today will help some of you overcome your fears of using an RB67 with strobes. Remember, this was a camera that everybody used to use in the studio all the time, so it's designed to work with strobes, so don't be afraid. Just use the tips I shared in this video and you'll be totally fine. Remember, the reason why a lot of us shoot film is because we love the way it looks, and when you couple it with lighting that you can control, you really can utilize the potential of film. I want to thank all of you for watching this video today. I hope you found these tips to be useful. I hope you found them to be helpful, and if you did, please click the subscribe button below. I do appreciate your support. I appreciate all of the comments that you give me. I wanted to get back to some film videos. I've been doing a lot of Canon lately, which I understand. I shoot Canon, but I also love film. So until next time, I'll talk to you later. Bye.